Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Welcome to eo120 Talks Esports. And this first episode is going to be the first interview I'm actually having. And it's going to be with Nick Inero Smith from Golden Guardians. Thanks for being here, Nick.
Yeah, no problem, man. Appreciate the invite.
So I actually want to frame this out a bit because I was surprised. Where are they at? There it is. So I actually wanted to frame out one piece in that we had a micro meet on Hotline League. Thank you, Travis, and all of his wonderful sponsors. But I came on in to ask you one question, and I actually didn't even realize that I'd gotten that market shifted me down like into the pleb calls or whatnots, and I'd started writing a bunch of sort of interview questions. So I took the gamble, threw the email at you, and you graciously replied. So I kind of want to thank you for being so like PR friendly.
You got to thank me, bro. I'm just like I'm a normal dude. I'm not really one to just like ignore people when they reach out, you know?
No, that's super awesome. Because you were honestly like the first. You're the first League of Legends interview I've really reached out on. I've been on other shows like Everything LCS and C9 Master Swags stuff. But I don't know. I just really needed to like throw the long shot and see if it was gonna land. Because I knew at the time I wasn't gonna be able to like start dishing out like questions like Mark or Travis was gonna shut me down.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't let it go too long.
Yeah. So before we got on, because I want to try to ease this well enough. See, I'm from the Orlando, Florida area. You could call me a Florida man if you really wanted to, but my Gator wrestling resume is actually quite short. But you'd mentioned that you'd actually been in Florida for a stint at some point. So why were you in the swamp state for any reason at all?
Yeah, I when I moved out of my hometown, I kind of just wanted to be somewhere that was just like far enough away from my family, so I wasn't like in constant like monitoring range of them. And it was also a really good time or like good place for me to be in, looking to get into like the entertainment industry and looking at like live lighting, live sound design, which is something I was fairly interested in doing at the time. So for me, like I just wanted to be somewhere different, and it was like, oh, cool, I can do this. I'm close enough to family if I like need it.
Yeah. It's like an 8-hour drive from the Carolinas to like at least Central Florida.
Yeah, and like my grandparents lived in Orlando, or at least they lived nearby. They lived in the Villages or whatever, a big retirement community there.
Oh, that's
it's an interesting place.
It's an interesting place. We'll keep it. Yeah. We'll
leave it at that.
I'm glad we both know what's going on there.
No, I think everyone in Florida knows about the Villages.
So to give all the simple things, the Villages. If you don't know, for those that don't know, outside of Florida being crazy and having a bath salt reputation, it's one of the biggest retirement communities in the country. And the Villages is a very popular one. And if you want to know why, you can probably have an easy Google search and it'll just tell you. Like we don't need to dive in.
Yeah.
So what area of Florida did you get into? Like were you around Universal and all that?
So I lived like just in the middle of Orlando. But I worked out near Disney. I worked out in that Kissimmee area.
Yeah, that's you know I
worked at Orlando Tree Trek. Yeah, I took the I-4 every day to work.
I know most Central Floridians will let you know that I-4 is like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, no, it sucks, especially when you have to drive like through the like I had to go past it, like the Disney exit.
Yeah.
So
you had to you had to sort of go beyond Disney, right?
Yeah, a little bit past. It was like the next exit after the exit you would take to go into Disney.
Yeah, the back end entrance or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but you sound like you were not working for Disney, but you were working at a company that was just located near Disney.
Yeah, I worked for Orlando Tree Trek. It was like a high ropes course there. I actually got turned down for a job at Disney, not as like a sound or anything or any big job, like as a janitor.
Just as a simple cast member, you couldn't make it.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I didn't smile enough. That was kind of the feedback I got from the interview, which was interesting.
I believe that on account of
Yeah.
like how, because I obviously I was in Florida. I was in Orlando basically for like 29 years. So
Mhm.
I've had plenty of friends go between Universal and Disney and kind of give, the vibe check on how it is to actually work for the mouse. So
Yeah.
that's actually like super funny, super cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember what specific, cuz were you living like in downtown Orlando at the time?
No, it wasn't downtown. It was like right outside of the like that actual area. It was like
Mhm.
in the suburb part of it, like right outside of it.
Okay, Mills Ave or
Um,
something like that?
Something like that. I don't remember the like area that it's called, but I was fairly close to what's the God, what is the thing called? It's like the Universal Studios thing. It's like City Walk or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Their whole thing. I was like 5 minutes from
Oh,
that. I was
oh,
super,
okay.
super close to
Okay,
that
yeah,
area.
yeah. So you were a ways from downtown. You were more south of downtown, and in yeah, that's John Young Parkway sort of area, like not too far from the jail, as most people might not know. Um, okay, cool. No, that's
It's been a while. It's been like 6 years since I was
well.
there. A long
And how
time
long were
ago.
you even there for? Like 2 years or something?
I was there for not even that long, like maybe a year. It
So
was a
okay,
very short amount of
yeah, yeah.
time.
You're not gonna, yeah, you're not gonna remember like half of anything I remember from living there for
Yeah.
so
It
long. So
was a
where,
very small stint in my life.
so did you jump? So where was the jump after that? Because I really, especially now and where I'm at in my life, I really understand the. I've been in one place my whole life, and I need to move somewhere that's far enough where I don't know anyone,
Mhm.
and it allows for growth, basically, to be very simple about it. Like that's why we've made our move. So what what was, I guess, maybe the next jump, or did you get like a big lesson out of Orlando that led to the next jump?
It wasn't really a big lesson there
Uh-huh.
outside of like to not get scammed from rent on Craigslist.
Oh dear.
It's the first place I was in. Actually, I paid rent, and then I got told that the guy who I paid rent to, I was subleasing from, didn't pay the rent, so I got evicted.
Wow.
Because that guy got evicted, I was like, "Oh, sick."
Wow.
Um, no, there was no big lesson there. I just went to Northern Ireland after that. I went to go live with a friend that was there, trying to get into esports,
So
kind of working that whole thing.
so what? So is that where you became interested in esports, or
I was
did?
interested in it while I was in Florida.
Oh,
Like while I
okay.
was there, I was doing some like side work just to try and like get experience and make like a little bit of just extra money on the side so I could try and get a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was wanting to play professionally,
Yeah.
but I literally played on like a broken laptop that was like duct taped together pretty much.
Yeah.
Um, so I was doing whatever I could to get some extra money and make that work.
Did you have
But
just several games that you played in or something like that, or was it mostly League?
no, it was all league. At that point in my life, like I had given up like playing Call of Duty and shit like that. It was all league.
Couldn't handle the frame drops. Couldn't handle
Yeah,
the demand. Sweet.
yeah.
So okay. So when she finds out about this, when my partner figures out, she loves Ireland. But
Mhm.
you basically got to move to Northern Ireland just with a friend and just keep working esports stuff.
Yeah. So that guy actually housed like a couple of people that were in the scene there.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a lot of G2 people that were in that house. Like I lived with Jez's, Smitty J at the time.
So
Both
like,
were on
so at the
G2.
time, like G2 players and stuff.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
essentially a boosting house. That's basically what it
Just
was. The
just
guy who owned the house was he owned like a little boosting website.
oh, okay, yeah. Well, that was like the only way to make money. That's usually, it seems like, the only way to make money in early esports. Like Overwatch has had
Yeah.
had that issue, and probably still has that issue. Um, and people, I think, have a very negative view of like, I have to basically either find the right boosted account, or I have to just get a new account and level it up so you can then play ranked again.
Mhm.
Um, so okay, so were you just helping the boosting? Were you just helping with the boosting? Like, were you just challenger back then, and now you're just hanging out with the rest of us?
I wasn't challenger back then. The highest I ever hit was master, and even then, it wasn't like very high, and it was
Hmm.
only for one season I
Okay.
actually played. I basically just chilled in Diamond Tens, but I would just boost Diamond accounts.
Okay.
Um, just good side money.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah. No,
was really it.
definitely understandable.
Yeah, there was
So
no money in esports. Like I think my salary for the team I was working for at the time was like 200 euros, 250 euros a month or something.
and
It
free
was
free rent or
really
something
bad.
like that?
Nah, no
No?
rent involved. Like I paid my rent in that place by like helping him fix the house he was in, like
Nice.
helping him like renovate. He was in like this old, like almost kind of like mansion thing,
Mm-hmm.
um, just in Northern Ireland, like right on the coast. And yeah, it was weird. It's very weird,
It's a very
honestly.
that's a very fix it up with using like just video games to
Yeah,
like help pay for the whole thing.
yeah, it was
Wow.
an interesting experience.
Did you have like did your like father raise you like around doing like electrical work or fixer up stuff?
No, my dad was a mechanic, so I grew up around cars.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but no, nothing really with that. But a lot of it wasn't really like that technical aspect of things. It was
Mm-hmm.
really just like painting the house, like just restoring a couple of things with that,
Yeah.
just fixing like some minor shit that you don't really need a lot of experience with.
Yeah.
Just kind of
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah, no,
just do it.
I get that. I repainted my house recently down in Orlando, and it's labor intensive, but it's not hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just annoying.
So I know from just kind of following for a while, and also just checking the Liquipedia page, so I am familiar. At what point, like, where do you jump from Northern Ireland? Is that when you just like grab, I think it was Mouse Esports, and jump out to Australia, or where was like the next like step? Would you
Yeah,
say?
so when I was on Mouse Esports or Mouse Sports, I ended up in Germany. So I was in Cologne
Mm-hmm.
during that time. And I like lived in the SK gaming office pretty much. Um, and yeah, didn't have a visa to live or work there. So that was good. I didn't move to Australia until after that. But I wasn't in Germany for very long. I think I was in Germany for maybe like 3 months total. I think that was like the limit on how long I could be there for my visa.
Yeah.
Um, then after that, I moved to back to the U.S. and then to Australia after Dream Team.
Okay. And then you I believe you ended up coming back to the U.S. for Echo Fox.
Yeah, yeah. After everything happened with Tainted Minds, Australia, I came back and got a job at Equifax through Acadian.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess the easy answer or the easy question is like, did you get a good experience out of Australia?
Uh, in terms of the work experience,
Mm-hmm.
no. The work itself was pretty awful just because of the conditions there we were in with that team. But the life like experience was great. I really enjoyed just living there. The people I got to meet were obviously just great to be around. We couldn't really focus on playing the game because of the situation we were in. So a lot of it was just hanging out with each other and just experiencing like Australian life.
That
So
so
I enjoyed that aspect.
that was much more of a cultural experience than much of an esport experience then.
Yeah, pretty much. Just I think we practiced for maybe like a month at most. Like literally, I think I worked for like 4 weeks, if anything.
Was so was it just a really underfunded team, so you guys just didn't have like computers to play with, or what? What happened?
Yeah, when we showed up there, we were supposed to have specific computers in our contract. We didn't get those for like a month while there. We didn't have internet at the house that we were living in either when we showed up, which those are like, what you would expect from an esports team. Like you got to have
Yeah.
computers and internet to
Yeah.
do
Kind of.
anything. It's like the bare minimum
Yeah.
thing that you should have. So that was already like a, okay, kind of weird thing. So we played like internet cafes, which are pretty bad. They're not going to be very good.
And
Um,
it's gonna be more costly, I think, in the long run, really, to
yeah,
do that.
it's pretty bad. But then after that, even once we had everything, like the home had no air conditioning or anything.
So everyone's sweating, and the
It's pretty
computers are
hard.
overheating. Like,
Yeah, like the power in the house would literally turn off if like because we had to run 5 computers at once, like just to have the players. Like even if I wasn't using my computer to try and help with it,
yeah,
um, if we tried to like our manager tried to cook food or something, like if she would go in there and like help cook for us, all the power would die. It would just turn off. If we tried to run like too many fans in the room, all the power would die. So it was just, it's just fucked. It was a
Wow.
really like unlivable situation. It was really bad.
I kind of want to ask the geography question. Like, were you guys actually like in Sydney or Melbourne, or were you on like over in Shark Bay on the far side of the continent? Like,
We were uh we were
because
like right in the middle of Sydney. Like we
but
were
it's
in Strathfield, Sydney. So it was like it's a nice area, but hot as fuck.
I
Really hot.
because I'm listening to this going like this all feels like some framed third world South American country. Like you're actually having an esports team in Venezuela instead of Australia. I would expect them to be able to have a power grid to support 5 PCs.
Yeah. It was I don't know. Surprising to say the least. It's very surprising.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can. Yeah, I want to get the. I appreciate that. So it sounds like it was just. So you end up back in North America and you get onto Echo Fox, Rick Fox's dream project at the time, and you got there through Acadian. You said.
Yeah, Kaden and Brandini
So
recommended me.
were you friends with them on the ladder beforehand, or?
I just helped them like individual stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just in between different gigs, I would try and like help out different
Just a little
like
one-on-one
amateur
coaching and
teams and
stuff.
challenger teams. I would just help the teams out a little bit, but yeah, just very
Okay.
small odds and ends and things.
Okay. Okay. So, alrighty. And then you've been with Golden Guardians for the past like 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah, I joined at the very end of 2018,
Yeah.
so I've been
So
there since then.
yeah, and I think you just re-signed for another 2 years or something, right? To like 2022.
Yeah, at the end of this year, I extended my contract with them.
Nice. I would take that as you're actually pretty happy with the org, regardless of any troubles you've been going through.
Yeah, no, I've been like obviously I've been through some pretty bad orgs, but this has definitely been the first one that's been nice to work for.
Nice. What goals did you start this season with? Granted, the state of the league with like say COVID. Granted, the state of the org with the budget cuts and basically having to get like pretty much a full rookie roster. Like, what sort of did you articulate any goals for what you wanted out of this team for like the team to really focus on? Should it be should at the time it turned out to be a rough season?
So goals for like the players itself, or do you mean goals for like the like coaching staff and org kind of coming into this year?
Yes, like anything you're willing to share there.
Yeah, so going into the year itself, like at least as the coaches and org, our kind of goal and like, all the budget and stuff kind of get cut is to try and find like some people we can build off of for the long term. This is what we started with when we first came into Golden Guardians in the first place. It's going to start off with a team of like 5 guys, and you're most likely not going to stick with the same five, especially when you're coming in like a rookie roster. Like everyone kind of knows that and kind of expects it coming in that you're probably not going to be the same 5 guys unless you just like struck gold going into the next year. But you're trying
Yeah.
to find the like good pieces from that you can build off of, and decide where you want to pivot that team for the future. And that's kind of the goal for us. Like we're giving opportunities to some guys to kind of like take the year, no real pressure on them, no expectations really to win, but to just be able to find the guys like, all right, this shows like promise, potential that we want to build on for the future with different pieces around it.
Okay. So, yeah, because even like referencing like Mad Lions, which was like the breakout rookie roster over in the LEC, like they even like replaced Shadow and what was it Arome, their top end jungle, to basically like stay contentious over in that scene.
Yeah.
So, and I think, and you didn't, okay, and you didn't exactly want to dive further deep into like each member's goals or anything like that, right?
It would just be, it'd be kind of like long, a lot of like, I can go into it on like,
Well,
Iconic and Niles, they're coming in from like completely like fresh,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
collegiate academy, like all that stuff. Academy, obviously, you're generally close to the LCS team, so you can kind of like pull a bit more info from that. But even like the coaching structure down there for a lot of teams in academy is really not the greatest for learning,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah,
everyone's been kind of like open about that. Um, so they're coming in like completely fresh, not getting a lot of like what they need to actually learn in the game to be competitive and pro.
hmm
Um, so for them, it's just like you got to be ready to fail. Like your goal is to just constantly like keep opening yourself to improvement. Like be very blunt with yourself about I fucking suck at this, and then be ready for that same feedback from us. That we're gonna like constantly hit you with this stuff, and you have to like take it one step at a time, and be okay with the fact that you're not just gonna suddenly start shitting on the next top laner in the LCS, like just off of 1 week of like, oh, I learned how to do this. Now I'm better than Alfari or some shit,
Yeah.
right? Like they have a lot of shit to catch up on, and they can't let themselves get like overwhelmed by that,
Yeah.
or like start doubting themselves just because they're not winning immediately. So that stuff for them especially was really important. Um, but towards the other guys, like Stixay and Newbie are both veterans in the scene, so their goals are more so around just like helping them catch up on things that I don't think that they've learned on teams they've been on. At least for Newbie coming in, he's coming from Latin America, which is still going to be like it's underdeveloped scene in terms
Yeah.
of like macro and everything. Like they're going to have to learn a lot of shit, and kind of just helping him catch up on that. Um, Stixay is the same in the fact that he's been on kind of one team his entire career, and he's obviously going to have learned a lot. And competing in LCS, like you should learn like more than teams from minor regions do. But still, there's a lot there to like catch up on, and kind of just learning everything that I could from what that team's perspective was, and helping him catch up on like perspective that I've gotten from working on multiple different teams and multiple different players from different backgrounds.
Yeah. I never saw the narrative created for Stixay, but we did get to see it where Licorice was highlighted as a possible veteran presence for FlyQuest, since that team had some rookie elements in it.
Yeah.
So my curiosity has Stixay pushed himself or been encouraged? Like, is he taking himself as a veteran, as like some older brother figure to these guys, or is he just a good, not to downplay him, but is he just a good cog in the wheel of just he's more focused on himself and self improvement, getting to work well with his support?
I think out of game, he definitely tries to more so set like a good example
Mm-hmm.
of what like a teammate should be, and more so like leading by example in that regard. But he's definitely not trying to like put himself out there as the guy who's trying to lead all the rookies to like do this, do that. More so like doing his job and just showing like what it is to be a good teammate, and then just leading through his example.
Yeah, he's more of, as opposed to like, because we're not even talking like shot calling in game or anything like that. Because it sounds more like he is a like a good soldier, but he's definitely not like leading the helm of the vanguard, so to speak. He's like that's a good player right there and stuff like that, but he's not the figurehead that's like like the morale leader, I guess. Like he's not hurting, and but he's definitely helping in a very good, consistent way. Okay, cool. Now, I guess the weird nut out of there, because you have sort of a bot lane of like at least quote unquote veterans out of Newbie and Stixay, but Ablazov has been around for a while, at least in like an LCS Academy frame. So like you have your rookies top side, you have your vets bot side, and then you've got this awkward middle ground where Olive's just like, so I'm here and I'm on Tristana, and
Yeah, for Olive, it was just like we wanted to give a shot to someone who's been in academy and has been doing well in it, and just see how he does. Like he was in our system for a year. We trialed him in between when we were looking to replace Golden Glue, and like tryouts happened there. And he did pretty fucking well then, but the team itself wanted to move towards Devontae, so it's the path we ended up taking. But he's someone who's been around, he's been doing really well in academy. It's just kind of like, well, might as well give him his fucking shot. Like he's kind of earned it in our system. We thought he did well enough. We'd rather go with him than pick up like any other academy mid. There's no point in doing that. Like this guy's kind of earned it. Let's just push it forward and see how he does.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what is your take on, at this time, like what is your take on your Golden Guardians team? Like we could frame this as like the 5 guys. We could frame this as the 5 guys plus the coaching roster. What is your take on them? I guess in terms of, I want to put it in terms of success, even though it's been a very rough beginning of the season, but like I kind of want to leave that question like wide open and just like where do you feel like the team, as much as you have control and influence in who you work with every day, and the guys, the players, the coaching staff, like where you feel at this team is at, and where is it going?
I still think we're very much in the beginning of things right now, but for me, I think we've made a lot of really good individual successes, but we've really struggled to kind of gel that together as a team, um, and actually like at least in game like push that shit for us. It's really really unfortunate that we weren't able to get a lot of wins and to see like the same successes show up on stage, but I felt really, really good about the progress that we made in that practice. I felt really, really fucking good about it. So I'm pretty happy to keep pushing forward with everyone. Like I know summer's going to be better. I know from this group that if we make the like right tweaks in this, that we're going to be in a really good spot. Um, and I'm really confident that we can make that change. Like I've been pretty good in the past when things aren't working well, like making a change at the right time and kind of turning things around with that. So I'm pretty confident like our ability to make that happen. So I'm feeling really good about things, honestly. This spring was a bummer. Like it was a real big bummer. I think we got our own like expectations internally, like pretty high for like I think the team itself felt really good. Like hey, we're actually like a really fucking good team. Like, we can do a lot. And then when it came time to like actually like doing it in these fucking matches, we were just too hesitant and we just like kind of shit the bed and we couldn't figure out really how to like hit this right and how to like change things up and make it work. Um, but I think we got the right approach going into summer, so I'm really excited to get back into it.
Okay, yeah, because what I actually remembered, because so in my power rankings, like in preseason, I actually put like Golden Guardians like bottom two, like next to Dignitas. Um,
Mhm.
but funny enough, like I actually became a fan of Golden Guardians when Hunter was on, I believe, with the LCS commissioner. I believe on I think it was an interview with Travis. Uh, and I really appreciated like just seeing a manager, and Hunter's the right name, right? I'm nailing that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hunter. Yeah,
yeah. He's the I guess the higher
he's like our
GM.
head of esports.
Yeah, head
Yeah,
of esports. Yeah, because it's him and then Dan or
Danon.
Danon.
Danon's the general manager.
Yeah, and he was on the Apocalypse episode. So, the Four Horsemen one. No, but with Hunter, with the LCS commissioner, and kind of just showing like how much he puts in to helping the whole NA scene get better with just format, tournament format, with season format, and kind of getting the impression that most other teams aren't really doing that. Like maybe they've got bigger things that they're worrying about, but I kind of became of Golden Guardians as a whole in that time. And I think I also just that led into some hype for like this rookie roster, like thinking that it was going to be some Mad Lions crazy run like they had over in LEC. And it was
Yeah.
well, I don't think did you guys have any visa issues like kind of the rest of the league did for the lock-in? Was newbie late to the party?
No, we were able to get him there in
Mm-hmm.
time for everything at least.
And did you get much
Uh,
practice before lock-in at all? Like no one really did, but
I mean, we had like about I think like 2 weeks of
at,
practice, like
yeah.
fairly normal amount compared to the other teams.
Mm-hmm.
But like being worried about visas was something that like kind of everyone was worried about just
Yeah.
because of like the COVID life.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we weren't sure. Like even looking at like players in offseason and stuff, like are we really going to be able to necessarily get this guy? Or like looking at like staff stuff, like will we really be able to get these people in the country? Like even in time for games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was a concern, but it never ended up really
I guess
affecting us with the guys we got.
it's a good thing you guys didn't get Broxa, I guess, basically. So
He always seems to run into visa
it's
issues.
so
Poor guy,
bad.
man.
It's such a tragedy for him.
It's
Well,
unfortunate.
the thing that I was seeing and kind of feeling out from just watching the early games for this roster is that like GG was on like you guys were on the precipice so many times of like taking games earlier on this season, and I don't know if it was like my heart failing me or my hope in the team later on, but it
Mhm.
almost seemed like later on in the season like the team either just was either less joined together or they're going through growing pains to where the potential like upset wins or just wins that felt like they could have come out in the lock-in tournament and early on in the split, they kind of seemed to fade away probably with the more the more veteran or more gelled teams getting their stuff together. Did you sense or feel anything like that? Because you guys I feel like there was an Aurelia game for some reason. I don't know why that champion sticks out, but I feel like there was early on like really close games that you guys were like right there. Like you guys had like 5K gold lead or something like that, and then
it was like a TSM game. We were playing Camille Gallio, and we were very ahead. We ended up like losing that one. No, a lot of especially looking back at the split, a lot of just what we ended up on at the very beginning. It was stuff that really, really, really fucking fit our strengths. And as we went through the split, really realized that we struggled off of those types of picks. Like we obviously, you can't just stick to doing one thing as a team. But I think I, as a coach, could have just kept us doing like this exact same thing over and over and just kept trying to like force the same like type of draft to kind of cater to our biggest strengths, which are the fact that our top and mid laner were very vocal and were very good at like no hesitation. They would make a call and they would do it. Like if they saw a window in the game to punish, they would fucking do it immediately.
Yeah.
So when we were playing like
you
Camille
need that
Gallio,
killer instinct. You need that killer instinct, man.
The killer instinct's huge. And like outside of that, we try to play like other things just so like we can learn everyone's job and see what everyone's like strengths and weaknesses are. Like when the onus is on like someone else in the team to be like forcing it. Like, can this guy step up and do it? Can he like show that he can force that fight when he needs to? And ultimately, towards the end, what we kind of discovered was we really heavily relied on the fact that our top and mid were very vocal and could force those engages on their own. That's why, like, towards the end, like in the very last week, we just doubled down on it. We were like, we're playing fucking Kled. Like, we're locking in Kled when the opportunity is good for us. And, like, Niles, you just fucking tell us when to go. Tell us when to go, and everyone has to fucking commit to this. Because, we were just too hesitant. Outside of that, we would be in good situations and we would know the right call and we would hesitate on it. And then by the time we make the decision after that, it's like, it's a bad call now. Like it's bad. Like it's too late. Like you've allowed yourself to like lose too much on the other side of the map because this game is very, very much about hitting your windows right.
Yeah.
But early on, like we were just naturally really good at playing stuff like Twisted Fate comps, Camille Gallio comps, because it was very easy for those two to just lead it. They could just go. They're like, I see this. Like, go immediately. Like, let's go. Like, this is our window to fight. So even though we didn't necessarily know the windows well because it was very early on, as long as 5 people are doing the same thing together immediately, you're going to succeed generally.
Yeah,
because you're going to catch the other team off guard.
It's I feel like Jane from Overwatch had the best line for it, but it's something to the effect of one person banging their head against a brick wall will not break the wall, but 5 people banging their head against the brick wall are much more.
You'll do some damage to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's better for 5 people to go in on a bad strategy because it just might work out more than 5 people going in 5 different strategies.
Yep.
Well, that would actually almost, especially with how we're getting into an engaged support meta right now, it would almost like kind of ask the question of like, what role does newbie actually fill on this team?
This is something we were trying to help kind of craft around Leandro, because Leandro being newbie, this is one of the big things that I picked him up for, was that he showed a lot of comfortability in his region, like starting fights and engaging and just forcing the situation when his team needed it. It's obviously without like Pro View, you can't do a lot of like actually watching people play outside of what they're doing on like competitive games. We can watch just like the mini map and see what they're doing and see how they play out fights, or just watching the stream to see like their POV. So I was really trying to do my best to help him catch up on that and feel comfortable doing that in the game, in a world where he's not necessarily speaking. He speaks English like fluently, very fluently. But it's a new culture, it's a new place. Trying to help him adapt to that. So it was like a bumpy road for him at first, I think, but he started getting better at it towards the end. But ultimately, like other teams are making like pretty big strides as well too. That was kind of his role on the team. He wasn't necessarily a big vocal point for us. I didn't like put that on him either, because I don't expect that to really be coming from someone who is coming from a different country. But it was a rough road at first to kind of like adapt those things and get it together. But a lot of his role is just trying to get comfortable with Iconic, the jungler, and get on the same page together.
Yeah.
And just finding a way to communicate between them that worked the best.
Well, that's kind of where like he's Newbie's not clearly on the same level as like say Sword Art, Core JJ, or Afremu, both in like at least how long they've been around the North American scene, reputation. But there's a certain point where looking at least like those three, or say even Vulcan, I can't believe I forgot about him. But there's a certain point, especially when you have engaged supports like in the meta, you kind of need like the team almost needs him to be at the forefront of it, because it almost sounded like you guys had individual picks early on with the Camille Gallio to where at least the predominant language could be spoken to help the team follow up on the engage or like register the engage. And like is it just like, is it sort of a question of like Newbie's confidence and I guess the comfortability that you're giving him time to sort that out, because if he needs to be probably the first to engage based on at least what the meta's framing out to be at this time, and possibly what it's going to be after MSI.
Yeah, no, a good majority of the meta was very much like relying on support, and that's usually how it's going to be. Like support is going to be the person who is starting fights for you in pretty much almost every single meta. And we were struggling with comfortability on that, just having that same level of confidence that he had while competing in Latin America. But you'll see, we started testing doing different stuff as a team. Like there was that era we were playing like Janna, things like this. Just experimenting with being more of a reactive team. Like, all right, if we're struggling to be the ones to like actually start the fight and start the engage ourselves, we can choose to approach it in a different way, which is just going to use our bodies to make the other team feel like they need to fight us. Like if they don't fight us, they will fucking lose the game. And we're playing like more reactive supports with that. Playing stuff like Janna. We were playing other things in scrims as well, like Caitlyn Morgana and a bit of things like that. But ultimately, like we didn't land on that being something we really wanted to do.
I sense your top and mid are far too aggro personalities to play the reactive punch style of boxing or something like that.
A little bit. It's definitely harder to play. It's definitely harder to play. It's not necessarily harder. Like honestly, like I look at it, I feel like it can be a lot easier to be the team that's waiting for the other team to react, and you just have to like dodge their engage. But depending on like your personality in the game, it can definitely be a little bit more difficult for you to approach.
Well, I would almost think at some point like I would almost think that type of play has more maturity to it in a way. In terms of it's how you could frame it or how you could talk about it, because you could have like the young gun, young warrior personality, like gotta fight, and then when you get older, you realize I don't have to spend any energy, and I can just make this guy just trip. And I would almost guess one of the biggest keys to the success of the reflexive strategy is far more of being able to identify when the other team has actually made a mistake, and maybe not even trip to making a worse mistake and thinking that they've made the mistake. Would I be wrong in that?
No, I think there's a lot to that. Like you have to understand both sides to understand like how to dodge their engage and stuff like that, you know? Like
make them waste their engage.
Yeah, it's like, oh, if I was on the other side, I know I would have to do this. So to stop that, I'm going to do this. That's ultimately why we ended up avoiding doing it. It was good for practice. I think we learned a lot through doing it. But ultimately, if we were going to try to do it on stage, it was going to be really difficult to find success with it. That's why teams always end up going to like the sort of like brain dead engage comps when they really want wins, because it is easier. It is easier when you're playing like other like lower tier teams. If you just have like the easier comp to execute, and you only have to worry about you starting the fight, the other team is probably going to shit their pants trying to avoid it when you have a lead. You know, they're not going to be as comfortable or like know how to play around it perfectly.
Yeah, that just reminded me of the dreaded best of 3 discussion that at least a lot of esports purists wish that the West had. Because were you? I actually remember. I remember you were Echo Fox was around, so you were coaching. Were you coaching Echo Fox when the LCS did the best of 3 format?
Yeah, I was. That's the split I joined, where Echo Fox made us do the like only practice internal split
with like Delta Fox or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys had wasn't it like Darius, I'm a Cutie Pie, and Voy Boy?
Yeah, we had that. That was like the like stream team that played in Challenger, but we had like a 10-man roster or whatever in LCS. That was it was like Brandini, Greg, Demonte, and then Keith. I don't remember who
Was
was
Dardoch?
the other
I
part of it.
thought
It was
Dardoch might have
Mash.
been was around then, or was Dardoch?
Dardoch joined 2018 with us. We picked him up because Echo Fox like dropped the whole roster after
Mm-hmm.
that split.
Okay. Did you have much? Well, it sounds like that split might have been a mess. But did you actually have any takeaways from how it was doing the best of three back then?
Uh, it was really hard to pull too much from the best of three stuff because there was just a bunch of just awful stuff happening with Echo Fox, just internally. Um, but I've always liked best of three. I think you can definitely learn a lot more about like how cohesive teams are in
Mm-hmm.
best of three because it requires like, you can't ever just win by what's it called? Just doing like oh you get like one like good strat, like you have a very good draft your first game. But if the other team like knows how to adapt around it based off of your strengths, and now they know like that surprise pick or something that you showed, oh, you'll just lose the series because they know what to do. Like consistently, if a team is better than you, they'll usually win best of three. So usually the best teams kind of just rise to the top, regardless of what their like um, first game went like. And I liked that aspect of it. I thought it was pretty cool, but it was hard to like pull too much else from it from the Echo Fox side because it was like we didn't really know what other teams were going to do. We never got to practice them. We could only see the games they played on stage. It
Mm-hmm.
was a very interesting situation to be in.
Yeah. Well, I have this sort of like it's I think it'd be ridiculous to call it a conspiracy theory, but I have this thing where I watch like Europe and North America, and I end up sort of trying to find where teams are drafting similarly. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like a self conversation that I have. Like I have no friends that talk about this game with me or talk about the scene. But there's certain points where certain picks are brought out or certain comps are brought out. I'm just like, and they're not playing each other that weekend. Obviously, I'm like they scrimmed each other this week. Like that's the easiest like takeaway
Yeah,
that I think you could almost verify. As like yeah that was a
yeah,
scrim partner this week. Um,
yeah.
okay.
Two teams just suspiciously playing the exact same random pick that no other team is playing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, what a shocker! Those guys must have played each other and realized this shit's OP.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Uh,
happens every week because we figure out the same things. Like we'll look at it and be like, "Oh yeah, these teams scrimmed each other. That's good to know. That's good info. We know they'll
yeah.
probably play like this type of thing."
Well, I think it was Giotto on a different show recently where like so the question for you is does Golden Guardian struggle to actually find scrim partners, because it sounds like C9 TL and TSM have their own like, and maybe even 100 Thieves now have their own like buddy system where they won't scrim any of the bottom tier teams, you could say.
Oh, I mean that's always been the case
Yeah.
that those teams do that. But no, we haven't had issues on our side. I think we've never scrimmed TL and C9. Those guys just didn't scrim. I think anyone that was not a top team. But we scrimmed TSM, good amount. Scrimmed 100 Thieves, a good amount. Um, no, we never really had issues getting scrims. I think a lot of teams were generally okay with scrimming us because we were good scrim partners. We didn't. I don't know. People will easily have like the idea that oh they're last place, they must be getting railed every scrim. But we had like a positive win rate over the whole year against every team that we scrimmed. So I
So you guys got
think
plenty of
teams are
scrim books. We're just waiting
yeah
for yeah. Actually,
yeah.
um, do you guys feel perhaps that you might be gated by not being able to scrim? At least it's just C9 and TL, but they are like the two monsters that we're all, you know, if either of them go to MSI, I think we're gonna be pretty happy with that. If TSM go to MSI, I think we're all gonna be sweating a little bit more than if we had, you know, Perks,
Yeah.
Alfari, or Sven going. Um, so, but do you feel like even though there's plenty of growing pains left for this team to really try to gel as best as possible, do you feel like your team might have been gated from not scrimming C9 or TL?
Uh, no, not at the level that we're playing at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not. The things that we're struggling with are things that you can fix playing any team. Literally any team. You can go and play like academy and amateur teams, and you can fix the issues that we have. As long as you're, like coaching the team correctly and doing well on that, and everyone's staying disciplined as a team, like you should
Mm-hmm.
easily be able to like approach that and do it. I think that only becomes a problem if you're like actually competing to go to to like Worlds or MSI or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
which like right now we're definitely not. That's not where we're at.
Yeah, because I figured that'd be like that could be just extra credit for scrimming like
Yeah.
the top two teams. But so I had one game that I think we all heard plenty of vitriol about it. It was the legendary game where it was you guys got Baron, Elder, a Blaze Olive was on Tristana, and it was against 100 Thieves. It was I think it was the second round robin of you guys against 100 Thieves.
Janna game.
That was the Janna game?
I'm pretty sure the one that people like were flaming. I know people like flamed a Blaze Olive for his Triss play.
Because I think he had
we played like Lilia, Triss, Sivir, Janna was our comp.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm pretty certain that's the one. Because the other game we played against 100 Thieves, we did like fucking nothing. We got railed.
Okay.
Early game.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look it, but I think there's certain points where I might be asking like a Blaze to like play like Perks, but there's certain Tristanas, and Tactical has been the recent one to get flamed about. Where it's like I don't think you understand how busted this champion has been. I was actually hot on the Tristana because I think it got brought out in LPL or LCK like early on in the year, and it's only now like the rest of the world's going, oh wait, yeah, this champion's still busted for knocking down turrets, being a late game carry, and being able to just run whole teams over better than probably even Jinx can, with how much peel the character brings in. So I wanted to actually flame a Blaze Olive because if he's also like I feel like that's where the team might have had a very disjointed sense of what to do when the obvious engage strategy early on for them that was comfortable but didn't, I guess, in your mind play to the long term was you had like Camille Gallia for a Blaze and Niles like irrespectively. And then you get to where like a Blaze Olive is on Tristana, and Tristana's not an engage ADC. So there's a certain part where they're just running around as a ball comp, and they have like every buff. Like, can you speak to like what maybe the comms or the mindset or the confidence? Like what ends where like the team has like this very clear ability to just walk in and should be able to win the fight like very cleanly, very clearly, like. Can you speak to if you can even remember that game?
Yeah, I mean it's been a while, but the vague sense that I remember from it is that we just couldn't find like the solution in game of how we should end this. Like we got the lead, we did everything to like gain that, but we were just struggling to figure out like, okay, how do we actually hit their turrets to end? Like how do we actually walk up and just hit this to end the fucking game? Because we know we should be able to. But we were struggling like really hard just to find it. And a lot of that is just, again, in game, when it wasn't just simple to play this out, because our comp, like obviously from like when you have 100% like view of everything, and you're not stressed out by the game, you have no outside like reason to feel stressed by it. It's really easy to see what could happen.
Oh yeah.
Like as coaches we're watching, we're like, holy fuck, man, like just do this. Like just please just do this and win the game. Like I know Sam, one of our assistant coaches, especially, like he's always like shouting while the games are going on, like just fucking do this, like just do it, please.
Just throwing keyboards left and right.
Yeah. So like we knew this is stuff that the team like understood in practice, but ultimately, like just because you understand it in practice, because we were keeping practice like very low stress, doesn't mean you're just going to be able to do it. And then on stage, like when that pressure's hitting them, I think we were just like trying to take the safe options for everything. Like, okay, do this. Like, this is safe. And if you're just constantly taking the safest option you can see and not actually like pushing to win the game, you're just going to slow it down and you're going to drag the game out. And ultimately that's going to give the other team the opportunity to get back into it. So and we just made like a huge mistake on side. I remember that delayed that game for a long time. Like, I think it was a Blaze Olive got caught. Like Nick got caught on side somewhere, like after we like essentially had won the game, like it was over. And he got caught, and we were like, "Oh shit!" And it just delayed everything.
Yeah, because if I'm remembering this game right, you guys were like bottom. You were on the bot inhib turret, clearly winning, and I think you guys just exited wrong. And the and I feel like it was who he engaged on the rel and just caught like the back end and just blew you guys up. And I think that's where like you guys like ended up losing it like super late in the game.
Yeah.
After like 2 consecutive like rel just being able to catch them because the guys may have been like fatigued or something, but just a misplay, a mispositioning.
Yeah.
That's actually where I wanted to ask you, because it almost sounds like you may have. It sounds like you guys may have accidentally like instantiated a play to not lose instead of a play to win mentality in the team.
Yeah. That was something that we really hit everyone on, like that this isn't something that's acceptable. Like we know that we come in with like a low pressure approach where we don't want you to feel pressured on expectations from our side that you need to be like shitting on everyone and doing really, really well. But that does not mean that you get away with just playing to be like a pussy. Like play to not lose, and like you will lose. Like ultimately, that's what it always means.
Mm-hmm.
You will lose the game because you're not actively trying to win. And I do think that mentality was in there in some way for sure. But you don't have games like we did and not have that mentality like seeping in where someone's like just trying not to lose the game and trying to like just do their job, um, and just hope that someone else carries. I definitely think that mentality could have been there, but we made sure that uh, that was kind of like rubbed out, that was not allowed, made that pretty clear.
By
But
the end, at
that is
least.
something that, yeah, by the end at least, like, look, this guy, you can't do this. You can't allow this to happen. Like, this is what I will fire you for. This is that is the one thing that I like set for everyone. Like, I'm not ever gonna fire you if you're like actively trying to win the game. Like, if you're doing what needs to be done to try and win the game, I will never fire you for just like, oh, you made the wrong decision. Um, Not when we're trying to like teach everyone and learn. But I will fire you if you're just actively like trying to avoid making decisions and hoping someone else does. If you're just hoping that someone else will win the game for you, like, yeah, you're not going to make it. And I'll be very blunt about that. Like, you will never make it if you do that.
I feel like in the last games, Niles took that to heart because he was like overreaching hard on GP and stuff a few times.
Yeah, I mean, he's never been one that's really struggled with that. To be honest,
No,
he always
no.
tries to do an excessive amount.
I
So
think that's where if he's permitted, I guess, by just the universe as it exists, and however off season goes, I know I feel like he could actually be just another good household name for the league, just because he's such a likable personality, like, and he just seems like a really good kid who's just like ready to fail, like with a smile on his face, trying to just learn how to
yeah,
knock these players down or something.
yeah, no, he's definitely got a good head on his shoulders. I think I have a lot of confidence in Niles' ability. It's just going to take some time to like catch him up on
Mm-hmm.
everything and get him in the right headspace to actually do what he needs to do to be a good pro and not just a challenger player.
Yeah. So I remember you actually said in the Hotline League episode that you identified certain things that you had perhaps failed at as a coach in preparing the team. And the thing that I specifically thought of back then and also now, because it sounds like you changed the mindset to make sure they were being proactive instead of ironically reactive in their mindset as opposed to the comp. But I was wondering if you have the resources, or do you believe going forward that you need to apply a different, or at least have different scrims that apply more stress? That like so for example, like I don't think G2 may have done it, but I know Cloud9 does it where they have their practice house or whatnot, and then they have their like stage house where like they enter a different physical space, and that sort of helps like, and I really believe in it for those that it works for, that it's a different physical space, so it really puts them, okay, we're in this place, and what happens in this place, the game happens in this place.
Yeah.
Like this is, it may be 2 blocks down the road, but this is our LCS arena, and this is where we come to fight and win and earn our paychecks and stuff. Do you have the resources to be able to do that? Are you looking to like make that kind of adjustment and perhaps have a more stressful practice regimen going into summer?
Yeah, I mean, we have an office that everyone plays at for like work, and it's only there for work.
Well,
So that's already in
are you
place.
defining work as LCS day, or are you defining that as practice?
Scrims and like LCS days. No one else has environments that they play at specifically for LCS. Like what you hit on with C9, they all live in like they have two houses. They have an academy house and an LCS house.
Mm-hmm.
and they literally scrim and play their games from the LCS house. Like
Okay.
they're literally just in that one house. They literally go from like their bedroom like downstairs to the room they play in. No one has that. No one has that specific place where they only play there for LCS games.
Okay.
Because there's never been any need for it. Because obviously you would go to LCS, but you would go to
Well,
the studio. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like, it was
I'm wondering
just
if,
how it was.
yeah, I'm wondering if I'm misremembering it because it sounded like it may have been for like the finals or something or for like playoffs, but it sounded like Jack actually did that for the league team where he created a different, like they just got another room or I think it was his Dota house. Like he was trying to sign a Dota team and they had to drop it because of COVID and everything sort of falling apart in the industry. And so it may have just been last spring. And that might have been the recipe for success, not Niski and Blabber's roaming talents. That they actually got like at least for the time, a different venue to actually put them in a game day mindset. Um,
From what I'm aware, that's not a thing. But I mean,
it's not a
I
thing
could be
now.
wrong.
Yeah,
But I'm very I'm usually very in tune with what's happening around there because I'm friends with a lot of those people. So,
yeah. No, I
but
don't
all
think.
good. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
There's
I don't.
there's
I
no
don't think
plan on
anyone's.
our end
I don't think
to
anyone's
do anything
lying
like that.
here. I don't think anyone's lying here. I was like, hey, this is what we
Yeah.
heard, and so then,
Yeah.
are you looking to make adjustments to the way you do practice? Are you looking to try to like maybe provide more stress, or try to have a more serious like mindset at certain practice points to
Yeah.
get them to practice the way they play and play the way they practice?
Oh yeah, no. The plan is definitely to put more stress like in the practice environment. I think that was just a misapproach by me.
Mm-hmm.
I usually try to approach in that way, but I wanted to approach it differently. This type of team, because I know when I worked in academy last, at least, and I found a lot of success, was taking a lot of that stress off. But I think that just happened to work for the environment that I was in with those group of players. And I think this group of players needs pressure. I think that's just what we needed. And I should have like identified that much earlier and pushed on it. But can't go back and fix it now. Can't time travel. So all I can do is just change that up for summer, and that's definitely the plan. Put more pressure on in practice, so the pressure on stage doesn't feel so heavy on the
Yeah.
guys.
Uh, if you don't want to reveal any secret recipes, but how do you propose like sort of doing that? Like, what do you think you can do to apply that stress and make these guys feel like, hey, this is more serious than scrims are? Like, do you have like
No.
an LED light just shining on their heads or something like that? Or,
Yeah, I mean, you can't go into like too many details of like what will really change from it. But a lot of it is just making sure like the seriousness of the environment is understood, like that it's not just a job you can fuck around on, and that I'm willing to replace people. I'm willing to like change your spot out, and like, it is what it is. Like it's nothing personal, like no hard feelings on it, but it is a case of like I have to do what's best for everyone on the team, and if someone's not, you know, doing their part in that, then I'll replace you with someone in academy, and just how life goes. There's not really much you can do outside of letting that stress be known. Because if you have to do like too much else outside of that, then generally the people just aren't there for it.
mm-hmm.
But a lot of it's just being very blunt and direct with like criticism that you're giving to everyone. I think I could be like very easy on the criticism. We would still like point out mistakes, but very much like in a coddling way of like, it's okay, like you fucked up on this, like it's fine. Just make sure you do this next time. Like you need to make sure that happens instead of like just letting people know like it's fine. Like no, it's not fine actually that you did this. Like it's really bad that you did this. You need to change this. Like you've already gotten the nice approach to this. Like you got to fucking fix this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a time thing. You've got time to waste. Like we got to do this shit now and fix it up.
Yeah, well, that actually kind of comes back to what I think what I think LS and IWillDominate kind of what they get from what their understanding of at least the NA LCS culture for at least the players. But it sounds like you're at least purporting that you have something that's a little bit more EU approach in terms of just being properly critical, at least as the coach. Like, I think sort of like the leading question is like, did you actually do any IRL sports growing up?
Yeah, I played soccer growing up, and I played a little bit of baseball.
Same on the soccer.
Yeah, I wasn't very good, but no, I grew up playing sports. I only got out of sports because I wasn't allowed to do them anymore. I had a pretty bad asthma attack, and my parents said
Oh,
no more.
H-
So I ended up
how
in
old?
video games.
How old were you when they took your man card? Like, what was this?
This is like middle school.
Okay.
I got kicked out of doing anything.
Oh,
This
that
is a
is,
tragedy.
and oh, that's super rough and super dumb.
Yeah,
As
I was in the hospital for a bit, so like I get it.
wow,
Parents like freaking out,
I
It is
understand.
what it is.
I understand why you make your money playing video games and not cutting lawns or something outside.
Yeah.
So, okay, then because I kind of want to run because you've been with one org for quite a while, and I kind of want to hear if you have any commentary because it doesn't sound like you are at least normally coddling your players or having to really deal with players that didn't exactly come up with an IRL sports background. Like because you and I at least have had enough real life sports background that if our coach or our player kind of comes to us like, hey, you fucked up, in like that kind of verbatim crude stuff like we hear EU is like with how they deal with their players. It's like I almost say you have said it, but I kind of want to hear like, do you sense that you, your players, your coaches can all speak very candidly about the game when people are really messing up or really misreading plays or things like that? Like, can you speak
Yeah.
to those things?
Yeah. No, I think our guys have all been very good about being open with each other. Um, the team environment's been great the entire time, which is really, really important for being able to have those conversations. But yeah, I don't think we've had any issues with that, which is good. But even then, necessarily, like that feedback they'll give is not necessarily like blunt to each other in like an aggressive way, like you need to fix this. It is still like yeah, it's okay, man. Like you fucked this up, and we'll like talk those issues out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's like the culture that I kind of built as a coach of like that's how we were talking to each other. So it's natural for the players to kind of give feedback in a similar way. It's you usually mimic your leadership structure.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely. That's
but I have no like worries that we'll be able to like shift how that happens too, and that everyone will still remain very open about the feedback to each other.
yeah. So it's like EU, but with a little bit more smiles and stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I guess so.
Um, I kind of wanted to actually. I wanted a longer version of this question because I think you like brushed it under. Not really like to say you neglected it or
Mhm.
ignored it, but I kind of wanted to see if you wanted to have a um, longer form like sort of reaction for the community in regards to the IWillDominate situation with the because he speculated often that's like 90% of what him and LS do with how much information they don't have,
Yeah.
and you know we have the hot word of the month between 100 Thieves and Golden Guardians, but I can understand of saying I can understand some points as they come, but I kind of want to see. Let me see. How do I want to phrase this? Granting, IWillDominate like a lot of slack is how I wrote this. Do you find his take reasonable, or is it just way off the freaking deep end for speculation?
Yeah. I mean, because I talked with him after this too, and even in like the thread, I said like I think like his take on this, like from the outside, it's
Mm-hmm.
like reasonable for someone to assume this.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like no issues with that personally, but I'm still going to defend my guys,
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going to defend my coworkers as I would expect anyone would if you're criticizing the people that, like people that you care about, and people that you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't care if people flame me personally. Like I really don't give a shit. Uh, but as I'm sure you can tell, like I really care if people like direct criticism, like if Niles or someone does like really fucking bad, like he ultimately took a risk on himself with the opportunity that we gave him. I'd prefer you just flame me because ultimately, like if he's not good enough, it's not his fault. He's not good enough. Like sure, he could have made himself better, but like he's taking the chance when he was given the chance.
Mm-hmm.
That's my fault. Fucking blame me. Um, but that type of conversation, the whole reason like I was upset with it is just because I've heard this one in the past. Like I've tweeted literally like the exact same joke, like I think two other separate times now of like, oh, Nero's friends. just getting hired, because it's popped up in the past in like other teams, and it's just like kind of a meme comment that I hear. Uh, it's just like, fuck, dude. You just get tired of hearing it. It's like, just at a certain point, like, fuck, just shut the fuck up. And it's not even like really directed at like Dom and them. Like, you know, I said in the thread, it is what it is for them. I get like their whole job is to speculate on what's happening. And of course, if you're the bottom team, people are going to like shit on you with it. I more so got offended in the thread that it was like, hey, like, you can't criticize this team even though they're 3-15. And I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't even say that. I'm totally fine with you criticizing us. I'm literally commenting on nepotism, and I think that that's just completely off base. But no, like I said, I talked with Dom after this. I wasn't too stressed about the whole conversation or anything afterwards. I was just defending my boys because I felt like they I think they're fucking good. I think the coaches are really good. And I worked with a lot of coaches, and coaching is not the best in esports. Like, it's really just not. And I think everyone has kind of been very blunt about that. But I think these guys are good. And I like working with former players. I think former players make the best fucking coaches from my experience so far. Yeah, so I love working with these guys.
Yeah, you gave me like 3 lead-ins to like other questions there. The one that's on the top, because you just said it, I guess we could speak very generally about, because we don't want to be playing rude to any of your peers, but what do you think is lacking for, say, the most in at least NA or LCS coaches or coaching as you see it?
I think it's generally it's the whole package that's usually missing. Like, you have to be a good leader to coach. Like, you have to be able to lead situations and be able to handle like just confrontation, just interaction with players, be able to lead like practice, be able to lead just like a curriculum of things you want to teach, be able to like keep people on the same page. And then alongside that, you have to have the game knowledge to back it up, and you have to be able to like garner that respect from players that you know what the fuck you're talking about. And for me in the past, like, people have always landed on one side or the other of that, and it's usually rare to have both. And the reason I think that the player aspect of things, like being a former player and turning into a coach, is like creating better coaches in general, is because those players, like, they already have the game knowledge, or at least like they have a good level of like the individual game knowledge for like a specific role. And if they were leaders on their team, then they generally can adapt to the leadership aspect of things too, because they've already done it in a team environment. But I feel like that's what's been lacking, is that whole package of things. And makes sense, you know? You can't really expect a lot of guys that weren't necessarily professional players to, especially in a young industry, always have the best leadership skills and game knowledge. It's kind of hard to find. A lot of the guys that started off as coaches in the scene were people that just weren't good enough to be players, or were like managers and just filled in for coaching because Riot said, hey, you have to have a coach.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. Well, like Dylan Falco over there in EU, like, I don't even think he had like a professional background as a player for a league, but he's just kind of I think he was just hyper efficient and very organized, and just really, I guess, diligent about like studying the game. And he's been employed on like, you know, top orgs over there. Because you were talking about coaches. Oh, okay. So what I was coaching. So I know you're actually quite. You're very. You will back your coaches, your coaching staff quite well, quite strongly, defending them and everything. But I kind of actually want to play, like, resources what they are. I kind of want to play a comparison between what Jat has built and what you've built as a coaching roster, because Jad and you would seem to agree in regards to, because he's brought in Cold as as sort of an analyst or an extra coach, and that was specifically Cold was helping out Broxa and them when they were at Worlds. So it's kind of a question of, it almost ends up being a question of like ranking what you value or what you think is important about them, because Cold was a very intelligent jungler, one of the top junglers over in EU. and had to just, leave the scene for personal health reasons and stuff that he's already discussed publicly.
Yeah.
It's almost a question of what about your coaching or how you build your coaching staff and team? Where do you think you could actually be seeing improvements, whether in adding people, maybe there's if there was an upgrade, like where do you actually see that? Because you've said the scene's pretty lacking for it, so it's almost a question of where do you see the improvement coming, or where do you see, like, if there was a personality or someone that's like, hey, I would like to be coaching, like where do you think you could go with that?
Oh, and that's always hard to say because it depends on who pops up.
Yeah.
Like for us, it really depends on
Like
experience.
if IWillDominate
like,
wants to coach next season, like what do you do?
it'd be something that'd be considered. Like for the Cold situation, like we offered Cold a job. Like he interviewed with us and we offered him because he was in one of the positions where I was looking for people to potentially replace me as a head coach, because I was looking to move into a different role in off season. And yeah, he chose Team Liquid, which is to be expected. If he gets a job at TL, like I would expect, like if you want to have that like guaranteed success now with like relatively zero risk, like fucking go to Liquid. You're gonna make good money. You're probably gonna win because they got more money. And for a lot of people, like that's the approach they generally took, and it makes sense. Like those teams attract pretty easily, but I always consider options. Anyone that's like a former pro and like looks to move to coaching, or any like potentially like long tenured coaches in the scene, like I would always consider, because potentially those guys are upgrades, and I would interview them alongside everyone. Obviously, like for our coaches, I would want them to have like a job in the scene. I would want them to exist in esports for like a long time. I'd love to see that. That doesn't necessarily mean they just get to just keep their job because I know them and I care about them. That's just not how it would work. I would always consider like other people, always, just because it's a part of the job. That it is competition even for coaches.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers like the question you're kind of aiming for there.
It's almost like it's almost like, what's your wish list for upgrading like your coaching staff? Do you believe, like, if you actually had like a massive expansive and resource options, and not even we don't even have to consider like the real life roster of coaching options out there. It's more like, do you sense any gaps in your coaching staff that like you would need to find some magical fill for it or anything like that? Is that something that you'd be comfortable speaking to?
I would just say academy staff. I really want a good, like, veteran, strong academy staff to help build up like the next group of people, so that those guys that are under like our current guys right now are getting like trained very well. That would be like the ideal thing that I think we're kind of missing on right now. Like quite literally, we don't have an academy staff right now.
Oh dear.
Like they've just been fired because of stuff I can't talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a big desire. Outside of that, it's kind of hard to really say on the LCS side. Like I said, I'm pretty happy with the like dynamic that we have at the moment. Literally, the only thing I could ask for more is like people with even more experience than the guys that we have. People that can provide like different perspectives from different regions. I think having a good balance from different regions is pretty good. Like I would have liked to go into this off season and not have necessarily like 3 guys from the same region. It would have been good to have like people from Europe, which is what we looked for. People even from like China, like LPL, LMS, anything like that would be good. But still happy with the guys we got. But obviously, like more experience is always really, really good.
Yeah. So were you trying to just exit League of Legends scene and go back to work for Disney, or like what was happening for you this summer, man? Because I didn't expect to hear that. Was it just like a lateral move, or?
I was moving into more like of a traditional head coach kind of role. I'd be working over like the both LCS and academy team and just making sure like the whole system operates well.
Like something that's more managerial, you would say, or like in terms of just framing
eventually would likely move into more managerial stuff, but the real focus was like helping train up these players as coaches and making sure like they're able to build up to success, especially during like a development year. That was a big thing that I wanted to kind of make happen, use that time so these coaches can develop too. I thought it would have been pretty good, but
That
ultimately didn't come to fruition for the split.
it's like a super head coach for both teams or something like that.
Yeah, just working between both. Yeah.
It's almost sounding. That almost feels like it would end up kind of working towards a 10-man roster situation.
No, I don't personally believe in that type of stuff. Um, where it's like, I think every time a team approaches with 10-man roster, it's like a kind of weird approach of saying like we don't really believe in our LCS team. We're probably going to try and replace some of these guys. uh, I think like ultimately it's just being able to make sure both rosters are getting the support they need, and both rosters are getting the attention they need. That isn't necessarily like always able to be looked over by someone that has coaching experience and experience like looking at the game. The managers here have been great to me, but ultimately like they don't understand the game to that level.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't been coaches, so they're not going to necessarily understand the same like pressures that like a coach feels in the situation, or like the needs that they're always going to have.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think is necessarily a fault of their own, but it is something that is important, I think, and something you can value.
Would that put you on the same level? Because Papa Smithy is basically the GM for the League of Legends part of 100 Thieves. So,
Yeah.
but would that put you on the same level, or are you just treating this like specifically as like I am a coach that's going between, both rosters? Like the Golden Guardians Academy has like an actual head coach, and the LCS team has a head coach, but I'm like the arbiter of like really developing like the coaching staff and almost by proxy the players. Is that sort of what was your ideal structure there?
I think long term would probably move into being like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, I don't think it would have been anything like that intensive. Like, it would have been fairly similar to what Peter Dunn was doing on Mad Lions. He was working between both teams and
He's
just
kind of
making sure that the coaches were set up,
he's
which
kind of
he
doing
says.
that now. It sounds like from his recent interviews. Like Dunn
Yeah.
doesn't sleep it. I don't think. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that actually ends up covering everything that I wrote down and everything that we sort of expanded on, which has been great. The only cliche sort of line is like, do you have actually any IRL or in the scene role models, coaches or otherwise, that you sort of treat as like guiding posts for you?
In the scene, not necessarily. Um, I don't feel that way, at least, to be honest.
More
Uh,
peers than like high held role models then, or
I really don't. Like, I'll interact with other coaches in the scene and I'll talk with them, but I wouldn't say there's like people I necessarily look up to. I kind of just try and do my own thing. I'll talk with guys. Like, I'm good. I'm really close with like Gihoto. I'm close with Grabs. Like, I'll talk about those and like bounce ideas off those guys and talk with them. Um, but I wouldn't say it's like a case of like I look up to them.
mm-hmm.
Like, I think
Yeah.
like I helped those guys get in the scene in some ways. So at least Gihoto I did. Grabs was not necessarily through me.
I was about to be like, oh,
Um,
you're the reason G2's got
no, no,
draft
no.
issues.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nah, but no one I really look up to in the scene, to be honest.
So then outside the scene, like, do you have any, figureheads of, you could say history, but do you have any figureheads that are just like guiding lights for the kind of like person or the coach you want to be?
Probably the biggest person I've always looked up to outside of esports was gunnery sergeant from high school, Russell Sweeney. He definitely helped me kind of build up who I was as a leader and as a person through high school. I kind of model a lot of the ways I approach things off of how like he approached things with me. Um, but that's probably like the biggest person I kind of base everything off of. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
have anyone else that I'm. Because I mean, I'll read books, like I'll read like leadership books, like from traditional sports coaches, like Mike Krzyzewski. I can never say his fucking name, but I think that's correct. Um, and just other like tenured coaches like that. But it's hard to say I can necessarily look up to them when I haven't interacted with them. You know, like actually, like I don't actually
Yeah.
know. They're like I just got their like their book version of themselves
No,
and all
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But that's my most direct one in person that I've got.
Yeah. No, I've got like, because just to sort of like understand it, I can't say that I've had like one role model significantly, and it was actually like my grocery manager when I was working at Publix, just because he was a great standout figure. But I think I would also extend that there are certain role models that I've picked out that like them and I have never met, but they've been, you know, standout representations of, you know, what I want to do as like a presenter or as an interviewer or as just, you know, a person. So kind of speaking like
Yeah.
to both people that you've met and people that like you've never met. So yeah, then I think that just about wraps that up here. Thank you again for coming out. Did you want to drop any bombs, drop any news, say anything before we wrap this up?
No, no, I don't think I have any bombs or anything. I've done a lot of interviews this week. I think I've done like
Yeah, I've
4 this week
noticed.
with people.
I've noticed. I was like, oh, how do I make this original? Oh wait,
Yeah. So I don't have any like big thing to really drop. Nothing too new, to be honest. But I appreciate the time though, man. It was
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
It's nice. I always enjoy talking.
Oh yeah, were you out here in Salt Lake just to ski around before you had to get back to LA, or
Yeah, pretty much. Just hang out with my girlfriend there.
nice,
And
awesome,
that was really it.
good stuff. Awesome. Next time you're in town, I can highly recommend Hopper's Grill over in Midvale. If you like garlic and fries,
Oh yeah.
and was it Parmesan cheese? Yeah, yeah, it's good stuff. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you again,
Check it
Inero,
out.
for coming in. And this will be the end for eo120 Talks Esports.